Good morning and welcome back to tutorials for Autodesk Civil 3D. Today I'm going to discuss an introduction to feature lines. And in this video, I will create a feature line from the primary feature line creation tool. I will create a feature line from a polyline, and I will also create a feature line from an alignment. I'll go over a few different basic ways to modify the feature line and use the feature line. And I'll also discuss how a feature line can be added to a surface as a break line, as part of the surface definition, or how it can be used for grading. So I'm starting with a file from the first video. I've renamed the file to today's date and intro to feature lines. And we're just going to start with a basic feature line. So if you go to the Home tab, under Feature Line, you can create a feature line. Now, to me, the best way I can describe a feature line is essentially a polyline with a different elevation at each vertice, but it has more capabilities for modifying that elevation and the distance and the slope between those two vertices. So it's useful, and then you can also use it for grading and surface definitions, etc. So when you go into the basic create a feature line, you'll see site. You'll see the name. You can change the name of the feature line. You'll see the style. You'll have a setting to adjust the layer. By default, it goes to see topo feature, but if you want to add some type of suffix, so test, whatever, you can have it add to make a new layer name. You can use the current layer, which is going to be whatever your current layer is in the drawing. And later on, I'll talk about what an entity is, but you can use the selected entity. So say you were to create a feature line from a polyline, it would take the layer of whatever that polyline is. There's some conversion options which are not available because we're starting from nothing, but these will be available when we're creating from a polyline. So we'll just start with the basics. We'll keep it on site none for now. None means that the feature lines will not interact with one another if they are within proximity or overlapping. If you assign a site, so maybe the site is, stormwater detention pond area or roadway number 1, those feature lines will interact with one another, and they can all be grouped onto one site and used for grading and other items. So we'll just, for now, start on site none, and I'll try to go through all these options as the video goes on so you can understand what's going on. It's okay. It's going to ask me to specify a point, and then where the point is, it's going to ask me to specify an elevation, so I'll just say 0. We'll go down 100 feet, specify a grade, a slope, an elevation, a difference, whatever. We'll do an elevation again, just then I'll put 10. Okay, now we'll go over 100 feet. We'll do 200 feet, just differentiate them. Now it's saying grade, slope, so let's do grade. Okay, what grade do you want it to be? Let's try 100. Okay, we'll go up here, 300 feet. Slope. Want the slope between these two lines to be 100. Or let's say 50. Enter. Okay. Now you can always go here if you want to look at the number of points and see how it's assigned to no site. It's on see topo feature. Shows the minimum and maximum elevation. But if you need to get some more information out of the feature line, you can go, once you've clicked on the feature line, this option will become available. It's called the elevation editor. And it'll tell you the elevation at each of the vertices. So when I click on one, it highlights with that green triangle. It tells me the grade ahead and the grade back and the elevation at each of those. and the distance between those two vertices. Okay, so that's basic creation of a feature line from nothing. Okay, now let's create a feature line from a polyline. I'll do a couple different ones. We can do straight line. It's 500 feet long. I'll even change layers so we can see how that affects. I'll do a rectangle. And say spline. And lastly, make a CNO and make this a polyline. Okay. Now I'm going to create a feature line from all of these objects. You go to create a feature line from object, select here, saying select the lines, arcs, polylines, or 3D polylines. So I've selected this one. I'm going to press OK. I'm going to put this on a new site just to show you how to create a site. Test. Okay. These features are fine. Now let's say I would like to have this be the current layer, right? So this is currently a polyline on layer 0, but I'd like to use the current layer, which is CNO, for this feature line to be on. Now, let's say I want to delete this polyline after the feature line is made. I will select this, press OK. Okay, so now we have a feature line on layer CNO. And if I hide that, you can see that the polyline's been deleted. Okay, let's do a couple different ones. Change this rectangle into something. Keep it on site, test from polyline. Now let's say I want to use the selected entity layer this time. So I want to keep it on whatever layer this one's on. I don't want to erase the existing entity. And for this one, I want to assign elevation data. So I'll press OK. Now you have the option to assign the elevation data from a surface. This object is outside of this surface, so it's not feasible to do that. Or I can assign an elevation. So let's make these all 50. Okay. Now I have a feature line that's on ACMG info. If I hide this, you can see that there's a polyline underneath it. And I'll change this just so, and I'll move it so you can see after I unisolate this object. I now have this polyline, which is the original feature, and then I also have this feature line. Okay, now let's look at the elevation data. All the elevations are 50. And here we did not assign elevation data for this one, so this one should still be at 0. Same thing for this one. Say it's on a layer, but you need it to be on CTOPO feature. So when you go to create a feature line, boom, we want to have it as CTOPO feature. We won't assign any elevations and we'll erase the existing entity. Okay. Now we have a feature line on CTOPO feature. There's no object behind it. The polyline has been deleted. Before we go into modifying these feature lines, I'll quickly show you how to make a feature line from a spline. It's a two-step process. A lot of times it's easier to draw roads or other nonlinear features with splines. It just makes it easier to draw. But then maybe you need a feature line from that object after. Okay, we can't necessarily do that. So what I like to do is I use the flatten command to flatten that spline. And now we have a polyline. And now you can simply create a feature line from that object. Okay. One more time, we'll go over two different ones here. Okay. This one's going to be showing you how to assign surface data from assign elevation data from a surface. So here we'll go to assign elevations from surface. Now I'm not going to insert intermediate grade breakpoints, which means that there will be no intermediate, for lack of a better word, vertices in between these two primary vertices where there's an elevation change. So I'm just going to press OK. And if we go to elevation editor, we can see that there's still just two vertices with two different elevations, and these are at the elevations that this surface is at. Okay. 373.65, 373.63. Okay. Lastly, create a feature line from object, assign elevation, and I'll show you what insert intermediate grade breakpoints do. Okay. Now you see we have all these different grade breaks. That's because this the surface changes elevation at many different points along this line. So if you go into your elevation editor, you've got a significant amount more of points along this line. You still have your primary vertices at the start and the end, but now we have a significant amount of grade break points in between. Before we go into modifying a feature line, I'm going to quickly go over how to create a feature line from an alignment. I have an existing, back out one. I'm going to bring in an alignment that I know I have through a data shortcut. Okay. Now I'm going to quickly create a profile and a profile view and a small design profile. I'm going to try to do this quick. So we're going to have a line at 360. And then we'll have it bump up to 350. Come back down to 360. Okay. And now we just have a basic profile. And I'll come back to this alignment and I'll say create feature line from an alignment, telling me to select an alignment or press the enter key to select from the list. I like to just press the enter key because it gives me all the options available in the current drawing. So we'll assign it a new site. Okay. This is the profile design profile that I made. So you can also select the existing grade if I wanted to. That would create a feature line along that alignment. At all the elevations of that feature line would be at the existing grade. So CTOPO feature, I'm going to have it as the layout, which was, I should have named this, but that was my design profile I made. I'll press OK. It's asking me, do I want to weed it? Sure. And now I have a feature line that is along this alignment at the elevations of my design profile. And as you remember, we went 360, and we bump to 370, and then 360 again. Okay. That's pretty simple. I mean, you can do a lot more with it. It gets complex as you get more advanced, but that's just the introduction of how to create a feature line in 3 different ways. Now let's go back to applying these feature lines. Click on one. Say I want to add another point of interest. It's just that simple. And then it asks you to specify the elevation. Say we want it to be 75. Okay. Say I want to change the site. So I can create a new site. Site new. All right. And it shows me all my feature lines that are on test from alignment, test from polyline. Okay. Now I want to move this feature line to site new. So it's currently on test from polyline. I can right click, move to site, select the site, press OK. All right. Now under site new, I now have this new feature line. That simple. Say I want to insert a bunch of vertices along this line at an increment of 5 feet. I can go insert point of interest, increment, distance between points, 5 feet. All right, now we have vertices every 5 feet along that line. If I want to delete a couple, I can simply delete. Say I need to change the elevation to this location to be 100. Boom. Or I want the grade ahead to be 5% from the starting elevation. All right, goes 5% over this length, and now we have the new elevation. Another thing we can do is we can offset a feature line. So say we have a curb, or maybe we're trying to create some other objects that we know are a specific offset from that feature line. You can do a stepped offset, and it says specify the distance, let's say 50 feet. All right. And then it's telling me to pick the side. Let's do the outside. You want to have an elevation difference. You know, you could say 0 difference, but maybe you know that that line is supposed to be 10 feet ahead over that 50 feet. So you can do 10 feet. All right. Now, if we look at the elevation here, 0, 10, 210, 216. 10, 20, 220, 226. All right. And it's 50 feet away. 50 feet. A few other items we can do. We can weed a feature line, so we may be able to weed this one. Oh, no vertices to be removed based on the weeding factors. What else? I mean, these are just basic ones. You can break like you can break any polyline. You can trim, join polylines, fillet. This will do a curve between 2 points, or, you know, a 90-degree angle or any type of other angle. So that's how to edit the basic geometry. Here we'll go into raising or lowering or an elevation from a surface. This is how you actually edit the actual elevations of them. These are probably my 2 most common ones that I used, but you know, there's other options as well, but I would say raising and lowering, and then elevations from a surface. So let's assign this to be 0 again. All right, so now we have a feature line that has 0 at both vertices, and we want to assign the elevation from a surface of the existing grade. So we can go into here, assign from elevation, elevation from surface. It's telling me to select the object, press OK, go back into elevation editor, and now has those elevations. All right. Maybe I want to drop this by 10 feet. So I can specify whether to what the elevation difference is. So I want to have the elevation difference to be -10. Say there's a lot of different vertices, and I don't want to go into the elevation editor and make them all 10 less, or there's a human error from calculations. I can just have the software do it itself. So at every vertice along this feature line, it'll now be 10 feet below existing grade. So I'll do -10. Boom. And now we have elevations that are lower, 10 feet lower, to show the point. Okay, 363 and 373. 373, 363. Okay. So that's just some basic ways to create a feature line, modify a feature line, modify the geometry and the elevation of a feature line. And then I'll just go over quickly, what a feature line can do. So we'll start with grading. Go into grading creation tools. Say I want to fill down to some elevation at a 1-to-1 slope along this feature line. I'm making an embankment. So I don't remember what site this is on, but this is on site test from polyline. So in order to do that, I select test from polyline, create a new grading group. If I would like it to be an automatic surface after the grading is done, I can do that, but I don't typically do that. Create my own detached surface if needed. It's okay. This is if I wanted to set the target surface. Here, we're not actually going to target a surface. We're just going to grade to an elevation. And I'll do this. I believe those were all at 363, so I'll grade it across the entire length. And I pick the side, and I'll make it 350. And it's saying, do I want to specify the grade or the slope? I'll do grade. I want the grade to be 100%, so 1-to-1. The fill slope, if there was a fill slope, do 1-to-1. Okay. Now we have a grading object and a feature line at the end of that grading object. Okay. Now I'll create a detached surface just to show you what that looks like. Maybe I want to grade up to a surface. So let's lower this -5. All right, this is on test from polyline. I'll move this to site new. All right. Just to show you guys that now once I'm on site new, I have to create a new group name. And I'm still here, I'm going to grade to a surface cut up. So I need to select the target surface in this scenario. I want to target the existing grade. Sure, I'll weed the feature line. I pick the grading side across the entire length, yes. Slope, we'll go 1-to-1 again. Boom. And now I have a grading feature with a feature line at the end of that. Okay. You can also create a surface from feature lines. So let's take, or add them to a definition test break line. Okay. Maybe I want to offset this again. Right? So I can select my feature line, add it as a break line, go outer. Inner. Okay. Now let's see what happens when I delete one. Okay. And refresh this. Difference. What if I change an elevation? Make this 10. Rebuild. Okay. So you can see that you can modify the feature line after it's been added to a surface, and it'll still modify that surface definition. Okay. That's your basic introduction into feature lines. We went over how to create a feature line, how to create a feature line from a polyline, how to create a feature line from an alignment. We modified a few different feature lines with the geometry and the elevation of them. And then I also showed you briefly how to use a feature line as a surface definition, as a break line, or to do some grading. We'll go over grading and surface creation in other videos, and more complex ways to modify and utilize feature lines, but this is your basic introduction into feature lines. With that, that concludes video number 2, and I hope you guys have an excellent day.